ladies and gentlemen, the urban areas and the rural areas, not all urban areas, just some, are struggling. And it's a lack of jobs. And of course, many people are constantly leaving and going to locations that are closer to where the jobs are. And really, that's something that's always happened in this country. So this came out in High Country News, July 9th, 2019. Much of rural America is doomed to decline. Since the Great Recession, most of the nation's rural counties have struggled to recover lost jobs and retain their people, which is impossible to do if you don't have the jobs. And we always hear the political candidates running on fixing up communities, fixing up the infrastructure, the usual things that they always say. But what to do about rural economics and persistent population decline is one of the areas that always confounded them. The facts are clear and unarguable. Most of the nation's smaller urban and rural communities are not growing and will not. And he's right about that. Metropolitan areas consist of those counties and central cities of at least 50,000, along with the surrounding counties that are economically dependent on them. They make up 36% of all counties. Between 2008, the cusp of the Great Recession, and 2017, they enjoyed nearly 99% of all job and population growth. What remained of job and population growth has divided among the 21% of counties that are called micropolitans, which have mid-sized cities between 10,000 and 50,000 residents, and remaining 42% of the counties that are rural. Nationally, 91% of all metropolitan counties grew between 2008 and 2017, but more than half of the remaining micropolitan and rural counties did not grow or shrank in population. So they're showing you in color. In the more orange color, you see that's where they had population loss in the country. In the blue, that's where they had population gain. And that's from 2008 to 2017 on this map. Like a lot of blue out in the west. Wow. Regional outcomes are also sharply diverted. The West and South combined had 72% to 82% of the job and population gains, respectively, while the Northeast and the Midwest split the remainder. Economic and population declines among micropolitan and rural areas were especially strong in the Northeast and the Midwest. 87% of the micropolitan counties contracted in the Northeast, as did 85% of the rural counties. In the Midwest, 61% of micropolitan contracted, as did 81% of the rural counties. Geographically, a large fraction of the nation is struggling to simply maintain the status quo. Yes, there are many struggling metropolitan regions, but there are many more mid-sized and rural counties wrestling with decline. Bringing it back home, 69 of Iowa's 99 counties have contracted since 2010, along with 10 of its 15 micropolitan counties. This ongoing struggle of mid-sized counties has negative economic and social consequences. Residents in surrounding rural areas depend on them for jobs, essentially services, public goods, and other commercial and recreational amenities. There is, in short, a regional ripple effect. The micropolitan counties falter, neighboring rural counties that depend on them often falter too. This is true in Iowa and evident as well across much of the U.S. Wow. The more rural areas are hollowing out the middle of the workforce. They contain lower percentage of people in the prime working ages of 25 to 54 because of persistent out migration. And they're right. Most of the people in these areas now are elderly. They really are. Your younger people, they're just not sticking around because they want to get closer to where the jobs are. Others define the population loss in terms of widespread declines in demand for middle skill jobs due to automation and outsourcing in manufacturing, as well as technology advances in mining, forestry, and agriculture. Of late, manufacturing and technology firms claims the woes of small urban and rural areas are due to skill gaps that distress economies could grow and their populations could stabilize if more people acquired more technical skills. Okay. So it's just showing you the growth, and you can see most of it is in the metropolitan areas. The South is booming, which I already knew they were growing pretty rapidly. A lot of people moving into the South and West. Population down in the Midwest and Northeast. The U.S. has been consistently urbanizing, especially for the past 100 years. Technology advances in manufacturing, agriculture, mining, fishing, and forestry accelerated migration from rural to urban areas. Over time, incremental innovations in those original core industries require fewer workers, further boosting migration away from rural areas. Much of the blue collar and middle income shares of more rural economies dwindled as a result. Small and medium sized urban areas and rural counties that are linked to them are left with transportation, public works, housing, and commercial bases that they struggle to maintain. Inevitably, blight ensues. Most micropolitan and rural communities have no viable economic plan B. So I believe that the majority of them are fated to dwindle until eventually reaching some level of stability. I know one thing, they are begging for a lot of government help in those areas. You know, they want help, especially with health care and also jobs and keeping their hospitals and schools open because they are just shutting down left and right, which is making it even more difficult for the elderly people in those areas. So, meanwhile, the nation's metropolitan cities continue to accumulate greater opportunities for meaningful jobs, careers, advancement, and enhanced qualities of lives, which I'm not surprised. As a researcher who has studied rural economics, economies for more than 3 decades, I urge policymakers to seriously consider the fact that most rural areas will not grow. It is important to develop policies that assure access to necessary public services, connect rural residents to modern technologies for the sake of participating meaningfully in modern society, safety guards that which is good and appealing about these less populated areas. Academics are good at isolating the causes and the consequences of rural decline, but we have yet to figure out what to do about it. So he's just letting you know point blank in this article, the rural areas are not going to grow. If anything, they're going to decline even further, which I have to agree. I don't see how they can, not unless they put some decent paying jobs there. I just don't see how economically they're going to be able to improve those areas. But please tell me what you think, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, people are going to go where the money is. If the money is not in the rural areas, they're not going to go there. Plain and simple. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.